Recording in progress. Okay. 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 So Elisheva, I'm going to hit this to you to get started. Okay. So I want to explain.
Oh, it's up to me. Yeah, no, they see you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to get started.
Hi.
Explain what it is we are doing. Okay. So we are going to be kashering our kitchen. This is not fake. This is for real. We are actually kashering the kitchen. And I'm just going to explain to you what we're doing, as we go along and do it, and explain both halachos and practically what is happening and why we do it that way, and being just how we do it. So come to the kitchen, folks.
Wait, can you hold it for a second? Just so embarrassing. Let's go to the kitchen.
Stand over here, and some people can stand in the dining room there because it's also a doorway there. So, okay, so I'm gonna go one by one. Anywhere here is fine. Anywhere you can. Okay, I'm gonna go one by one through the different parts of the kitchen, and I'm gonna explain why it needs to get kashered, and then what we do to kasher it, and then show how it's done. Okay, now I'm gonna start with the stove because what I'm going to be doing here is really only going to be, this is one thing that we're doing just for show, because this is a self-cleaning oven. The halacha is on a self-cleaning oven. You're going to just come so you can see like the inside of it. On a self-cleaning oven, you set it to the highest self-clean setting that it has. We're going to do that at the end because it gets very hot in here. So we'll do it after everybody leaves and let it go through the night. And then when you set it on the self-cleaning, so that anything, the oven itself, as well as anything you put into the oven is totally kosher. The halacha is, that's called hachzara l'kivshan. It's like returning it to the furnace. And that works even for things that can't be koshered, like cheres, for example, earthenware, like china and stuff like that, cannot be koshered. However, if you successfully self-clean it, it becomes kosher, not because you're koshering it, but because it burns any taste where it is, so that there's no taste. However, it'll usually ruin it. So I don't recommend you ever using china or anything earthenware because chances are it will ruin it. And the truth is that something that might get ruined is a gzeira. You're not allowed to kasher it because maybe you're going to stop the kashering in the middle, right? Meaning, like in the olden days, if you had a very expensive utensil, there was also to kasher it because I was worried that you wouldn't really go through with the kashering. However, because the self-cleaning oven locks and you can't open it in the middle, so the poskim say that gzeira does not apply. So therefore, the halacha is anything you put into a self-cleaning oven becomes kosher. Now, it happens to be that in our home, last year, right after Pesach, or sometime like last year, we got a brand new used oven, meaning like this is an oven that we moved to America with, and it died at a certain point this year. So we bought the exact same model again. That's a shout out to GE ovens, quality. So what we decided we were going to do this year is instead of doing what I'm going to show you, which is what we've done until now, meaning the kashering and the self-cleaning, anything inside the oven and the oven trays, anything like that is going to be kosher, right? However, they tell you don't self-clean them because they get ruined. It ruins the coating on it, and it could even get warped by self-cleaning it. So they recommend us not to self-clean it, but we're going to try it this year, right? So it's for crazy like that, go nuts. So this year, because we have two sets of these, so even if they get ruined, then we'll just kasher them like we've done until now. But if they don't get ruined, then it's a real score because then we've got a full.
How would you kasher them other years?
So I'm going to show you right now.
Okay.
If the self-cleaning works, so then we're just going to keep a full set for Pesach, and then I'm never going to have to do this kashering again. But I don't know yet if it's going to work or not. Okay, but what we do in any other year, and what we'll do this year, if it doesn't work, is as follows. Okay, so something like this. Let's explain what the story with this is. So this gets food on it, stuff spills on it, splatters. Obviously, all year long. There's chametz that gets embedded into this. And it's embedded at a very, very high temperature because the fire is right over there. The truth is, it's such a high temperature that some folks can say this is not really even a problem because any chametz or treif that gets there, it gets burnt out on its own over the course of the regular year. right? And therefore there's some leniencies, that apply. However, halach l'maaseh, when it comes to Pesach, we don't rely on that, and we kasher them. Okay, so how we kasher this is something called libun kal. Okay, libun kal. What that means is at first it has to be cleaned. So the truth is, right, we didn't do this because we were counting on the self cleaning. So what we're going to do here is not even going to work. What I'm doing here is just for show. But what you would do is as follows. Okay, the libun kal is the same as hagal. What does that mean? There's two different ways that we can get taste out of a utensil. Okay, what we described before of putting it into self-cleaning, that's not considered pulling the taste out. That's just incinerating it where it is. Right. That's not removing the taste. The way to remove the taste is either through boiling water, right, or through what we're doing now called libun kal, where you heat it up so much that the taste jumps out. Okay, and but when you're kashering, you first have to wash the thing totally thoroughly, which we didn't do yet, because if you're burning it, you don't have to wash it. It's just everything gets burned. So we didn't bother washing these because we were planning on burning them anyway. If it doesn't work, so then you have to wash it very well. Like this is what it's greasy here, right? So this would not work. But you have to wash it very, very well. Then let it sit for 24 hours, like everything else has been like that. Like when we get to the sinks, you'll see, you can head to the sinks for a second. Right. So the sinks we washed yesterday before 8 p.m. and covered in plastics, nobody would use it, right? And anything that you're going to kasher has to be clean and sit for 24 hours before you kasher it. But again, self-cleaning is not kashering, that's just burning it out, so you don't need to do that. Okay, but what you would do is after this would be sitting for 24 hours, you put it upside down over the place where the fire is, and then you turn it on to the highest and you let it sit for 15 or 20 minutes. What I usually do is I take a piece of tin foil and about this, give me like a square of tin foil, like I put a big piece and fold it into quarters. I take a piece of tin foil and I put it on top. I recommend that you do this only one. You could really do two at a time. You could do like the diagonally across. It just gets very, very hot, and you have to just be careful, especially if there's a lot of people around. It gets like super duper hot, and you can only move it afterwards with like a pliers. You know what I mean? You not even like with the gloves and burn through. But the idea is the level of libun kal, it gets to a heat that's called kash nisraf, which like in the old days, or even nowadays, you take a piece of straw, touch it against the thing that you're kashering, and it would singe, right? So that works. In other words, after this like 10 minutes, I've done this every year. I test it out and just show people. Okay, if you do like twice that size, please. After 15 or so minutes, it's like traps the heat in. And okay, I think it's okay. I think it's fine. Okay, fine, that's fine. So after 10 or 15 minutes, you'll see I'll come over here with the pliers. I have the tools over there. I'll come over here with the pliers and with a piece of tissue paper, and it'll work. It won't catch on fire. It doesn't have to, but it'll turn into nice tapping the heat in there. Okay, so let's set the timer on this.
So this is just to make it faster.
This tin foil is just to intensify the heat and keep the heat in. So we're going to set that for 15 minutes. I may just make sure it doesn't light on fire, pull my attention to it or whatever. And like I said, halakhically, you could do 2, 3, 4 at a time, but I don't recommend doing that safety-wise. But that's all you need to do. And then we'll show you what to do when you're finished with it afterwards. Okay, but like I said, again, we're doing this just for show. This is not going to work halachically. In fact, no, I'll let it go anyway to show you. Because why not? Why is this not working halachically? We didn't clean it, right? So on the contrary, by doing this now, no, we have to clean it now and then wait 24 hours. Okay, so that's how the stove. So every part that gets hot enough that the chametz gets there, it gets hot enough like this. In other words, this is getting hotter than it ever gets in the cooking process, right? Because cooking, you have liquid on top, and that takes away the heat from it, right? So this gets hotter than it could get in any cooking process. So the rule of thumb is kabolo kach polto. The way it gets in is the way it gets out. So as long as we're getting to the temperature at least and plus hotter than the highest temperature that it gets cooked in, so that's going to pull it out. Okay, that's idea. Okay, So let's move on. Please, just if you're walking around in the kitchen, please be careful over there, and be very, very careful. Okay. Before we get to the sinks, that's the messiest thing. This is a new thing now. This we've never done this before. So let's see. If you move in it, just please be careful. Okay, up there. But this is a Tami Bar, like not officially a Tami Bar, but Noam. I don't know what the name of it is.
Water machine.
A water machine. So this, I was never okay with kashering this before. Like all the years in the past, I would tell people, not to kasher it, get a new one. Okay, so I want to, because plastic cannot be kashered. Okay, that's a rule. Like, just please be careful. Please, I am so nervous. Is this not safe? Like, we shouldn't do this. Maybe just turn it off if it's just for show, she says. But even though I want to show them that it'll burn the thing, everyone will believe me. You'll all believe me.
Yeah, we'll believe you. For safety purposes.
For
safety purposes, we'll turn it off.
But still be careful. Still be careful.
Yeah.
Okay. So plastic, in other words, only materials that are mentioned in the Torah can be kasher, right? The Torah tells us explicitly. And it's basically.
Hi, cutie.
It's okay, she's harmless, trying to pepper.
No, I just felt something.
Harmless.
I was like, oh.
So metal can be kashered. Okay, that's explicit in the Torah. Anything that's metal can be kashered. Like we said before, anything that's earthenware cannot be kashered. Right. So cheres, china, any corningware, anything like that, that cannot be kashered. Glass is a very big shiloh. Right. It's really from one extreme to the other. Glass, according to Sfardim, can never become tray for chametz to begin with, so you never need to kasher it, right? And that's the halacha l'maisa. Glass for Sfardim is mutter to use all year round, hot, cold, any which way, because according to Sfardim, glass does not become chametz or treif, and therefore you don't need to kasher it. According to Ashkenazim, it's the exact opposite. According to Ashkenazim, glass is like cheres, it's like earthenware, because it's made out of sand, so therefore glass, not only can it become treif or chametz, but it can never even be kashered. Okay, what? I'm sorry.
Oh, if it's cold, then
it's cold. It doesn't become affected by it, right? But so that you don't need to kasher it, which we're going to talk about now. Right. So the reason that many people in Ashkenaz are confused about glass is because for many hundreds of years, glass was only used for cold. They didn't have hot glass utensils, and something that's cold doesn't become fleshings or milkings. They didn't have washing machines, what they're called, dishwashers and things like that. So everything was just washed by hand. So a glass drinking cup, even if you would use it at a fleshing meal and a milking meal back and forth, it would never actually become fleshings or milkings. You were never cooking meat or dairy into that cup, so there was never a problem, right? It's only once we started using cookingware that was glass and hot utensils that were glass. So now we Ashkenazim needed to know these halachos. And the halacha is that once something becomes either milkings or fleshings or chametz, it cannot be kashered. Okay, we treat it like cheres, like china or earthenware. Okay, so glass cannot be kashered according to us. Now plastic, according to everybody, can't be kashered. Plastic wasn't around in the times of Chazal, and it's made out of who knows what, some man-made material. So it cannot be kashered, which means that once taste goes into plastic, you can never pull the taste out of that plastic. Okay, so if you have, let's say, like in a microwave, those plates that you actually cook in the microwave, whatever, so those become milkings or fleshings or chametz. You can't do anything about it. Okay. When it comes to an urn, or when it comes to one of these things, so there's a lot of plastic that's there. However, there's no actual cooking of chametz either, right? There's no, even though there's hot water that's coming out, and even though there's hot water, and let's just think about it, right? The only way, let's take a step back. If you have something that has no taste infused, right? Let's just take like a glass, right? Let's take like a glass that a person uses only for cold drinks all year round, right? So that glass, and they don't put it in the dishwasher, and let's say they wash it only with cold water, right? So that glass, the walls of that glass never ever had taste into them, right? It was just used with different things, and you have to make sure that it's clean, right? And you have to make sure that you washed it, make sure it's clean, right? However, that you could use on Pesach. If you're sure that it's totally clean, there's nothing wrong, right? There's no chametz in it, there's no chametz on it, so then there's nothing wrong, right? It's only when you get to hot stuff that the chametz is infused into it, and then we have to deal with extracting the chametz out of it. Yeah? Okay.
It's not just glass, it's also with metal.
What?
Like if metal has something cold,
then it doesn't be like a metal water bottle or whatever.
Yeah, anything is like that. Anything if it only has cold in less than 24 hours, you know what I mean? If something sits in it for 24 hours, then that also, in other words, if you would have beer or schnapps that's chametz itself and liquid, right? If it's solid, it doesn't do it. I'll tell you, oatmeal in a metal bowl that won't do anything, even if it sits there for a week. But if you've got beer or schnapps, so that the liquid is chametz and it sits for 24 hours, so then whatever it is, if it's glass or anything, it'll become chametz, right?
Hot oatmeal?
No, hot oatmeal becomes chametz because it's hot, right? But I'm saying just because of something sitting in something, it's only if it's liquid. Okay. So when it comes to something like this, so let's talk about it. So if there's no chametz cooked into it anywhere, right? There's no, which we'll talk, like what would be the only possibility? The only possibility would be if a person made oatmeal, and nobody takes the oatmeal and it flings it up into the thing, right? That doesn't happen. It could, I guess, something like that, but nobody does that. But what does happen is that you make oatmeal, let's say, right up next to it, and the steam from the oatmeal goes up, right? And that steam is for sure chametz steam, and it's probably yatzolet as well. Probably, like if you put your hand there, you probably pull your hand back. It's not like super duper hot, but probably that's it. Okay, anyway, so because that steam might be there and might have infused some chametz up into there, what we do is as follows. So first of all, we cleaned the whole thing like really, really, really well, which took a very long time. And I took pictures of it, up in those things, in those nozzles, it's very hard to clean. There's like pipes that are exposed and ridges and all sorts of things. And Mamish went in there with like Q-tips and toothpicks and like, which I don't ever do for normal things, but it was important to us to use this for Yantif. And like, otherwise I just would like covered it over and gotten an urn for Yantif. But my wife thought it was very important. If we could use it, then we should get it usable. So I spent a long time on this today. And I can't show you the pictures because it's my phone is there, but it's like, if somebody else wants to, can somebody give me your phone, or you just turn on the video with a flashlight, with a light on, and before I do what I'm going to do, just so you can like show everybody else what the story is, because it's not, just like sort of video up in there so people could see what it looks like, because it's not just like 3 little openings that you can clean. There's like
So you had never used it
if you never used it for chametz, like let's say you had it somewhere and you never made oatmeal and you never made,
Okay, so this is what the inside looks like.
that was that's what I was saying. You just have to make sure it's clean, and you wouldn't have to.
Why does it
do
kind of
what
like
we're doing.
a regular like?
You didn't get it?
No, no. I'll explain that in a second. Because there, the water is mamish cooked into the plastic over here. Here it's just coming out of that spout. It's not like cooked into the meat. Okay, a second. Okay, but
He's trying to figure it out.
Flash doesn't, I don't know how to make flash on.
Not even
okay, but see in there, maybe just like this you could do it. Maybe let's just see. I don't know. Oh, there you could see. Okay, people who are looking on the thing, so you could kind of see even without the light. But that area there was very, very, very dirty. I could show you like before and after pictures. That area was very dirty. Okay, so what we're going to do is as follows. So we're boiling up water. Please be careful. We're boiling up water, and what we're going to do. Please be careful. This is real bleach with a very, very high concentration of bleach. Like I'm going to make this like so. Be careful and don't freeze in the fumes. Please be careful. Be careful. Be careful. This is real bleach and everything. So what we're doing now is with a very, very high concentration of bleach. Okay, you see that like half a cup of bleach or so. I should not too much. I don't want to do too much because then it's not going to steam as much as we need it to. 1 second. Where can I pour this?
Rabbi, what's the reason that the bleach is used?
I'm going to explain to you in 1 second. Sorry, 1 second.
I don't think my parents did the thing. I just put it in the oven. You can't video.
So now,
She was in Mexico.
Oh,
okay, so what we're doing is as follows. Now, if we were able to actually turn this upside down, this whole thing, And after cleaning it out and pour hot water on it and do hadala like kosher, so then that's really what we would do. But the problem is twofold. Number one is that you can't kosher plastic, and number two is that you can't really do that on this whole thing, right? So the best that we could do is as follows. Now, again, this would not work if it was like actually chametz, or if there was actually any question of real chametz. Let's say like a kumkum that sits out on your counter all year round. So if it's at an office, let's say, and nobody makes oatmeal there, and it's not a kitchen, and it's only used for coffee, so then maybe you could do the same thing and kosher, clean it out very well, and do like what we're doing now. But under any other circumstance, meaning a regular kumkum that sits out on your counter, so that's going to be chametz gomor. Why? Because it's so plausible, it's not for sure that a crumb sat on that thing while there was water boiling in it, right? And that's going to like cook the crumb into it, right? So a kumkum that sits out on your counter, and even an urn like that, it moves around and stuff like that. I've never allowed koshering before, again, because of the plastic. If there's no plastic, you just kosher it like anything. But because you can't really kosher plastic, anything that has a chash of actually having real taste in it, I don't think it's mutter to kosher. However, here, because again, the worst case scenario that we're talking about is not that it's impossible for a chametz to have been cooked into it. The only thing possible is for steam to have come up. So what we're going to do is as follows: we boil up this water. So it's going to be like as hot as the water that ever comes out from there, right? And when it hits the steam, it's going to create a hot yad soledas both steam. So the steam is now going to be infused into that plastic, and the bleachy steam is going to make the taste in there pugum. Oh, careful. Watch carefully. I'm going to pour it in the whole thing and don't breathe.
So why the bleach?
Because the bleach makes the taste pugum. The bleach, any taste that's in there, any chametz taste that may be in there, right, is now made unfit for consumption because of the bleach that's a part of it. You understand? Like the
steam is hotter than any.
One second. So technically, again, if you were stuck and you were no other choice, careful, it's like burning hot bleach and cooking, right? That's what that's.
What's not ideal?
Yeah.
That's chili on
By cooking it in, is that audible or not?
No.
So the answer was yes. If you have a plastic kumkum, please, I'm sorry. If you have a plastic kumkum and there's no other way to, you have nothing else to do. There's no, you can't. You have no other way of having hot water for Pesach. So then yes, there would be a heter b'diavad. I would get asked a shayla on a case by case basis. But doing something like this of using boiling bleach in order to be pogame is what it's called. You're being pogame the taste. You're making the taste pogum that's in there. So that is something that is, again, the Yevid in a situation you would maybe be lenient, but again, the big difference, which is a massive difference, is that we're not really worried about chametz here. We're not really worried that chametz is actually balua in here. The worst case scenario is that maybe some chametz steam got up in there, so that's what we're doing to take care of.
So
okay,
that interesting. You wouldn't be able to, or you put bleach in.
Yeah, then you would have to like cook bleach into it. You'd have to like make it like half bleach or a third bleach or something like that. So it was like a really heavy duty bleach cooking in it, and then
let it sit.
And then let it sit and boil up over the top. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, okay. I want to just fill this up. I'm listening. I just want to fill this up, but we're going to need more of it in a second. So if there's any other questions, I'm listening. I just want to fill it. If somebody just find like these towels.
Hi, people.
This looks so fun. You guys are so lucky.
Yeah, I'm very jealous. We miss you. No one invited me. I should have just crashed.
I'm not the only one eating dinner.
Oh yeah, no, I'm like eating pasta as we're talking about.
All this leafy dry.
It's good.
Okay, moving on.
Why do you use the word?
Oh, Maya.
Dial, are there more towels available? A bunch more, please. Well, I need for like the counters, and a little bit to dry up over here, like 3 minutes. Okay, so now let's move on. Okay, so the thing beeps over here, so I don't want to just, so basically, on the normal, if we let it go, so after 15 minutes, I've taken a piece of, tissue paper, with pliers and held it to it, and it burns. No, you don't have to do anything. My point is, you don't have to do that. That's not part of the process at all. The point is just to show you that it works. So no, you don't use your hair. Okay, so now I want to explain what we're going to see over here. We are at the sink. So now, like I explained before, these are metal, which is good because that means that it has the ability to absorb taste. And also give out that taste, right? So through the process of kashering, perfect, thank you. That's why you use the block the counters. Okay, so what that means is that over the course of a year, like in any home, the sinks are used, and they're used for chametz and any type of food, and any time hot chametz comes in contact with the walls of the sink. Well, not any time, we'll go through how in a second. So then that chametz can get absorbed into the walls, okay? But it's not any chametz and any time that it's hot that it happens. If a person has a bowl of oatmeal and it's half empty and they're finished eating it, and even though it's still what we would maybe consider hot, and they put that into the sink, that's not going to make the sink chametz, right? What is required in order to make the sink chametz? Like the halachos of bishul, which means it has to be either from a kli rishon directly, irui, pouring directly from a kli rishon, and that also is, happens, but it's not, doesn't happen all the time. But let's say you have a pot of pasta, and you pour that into the sink. So usually you're pouring it over a colander, right? And the colander is going to now heat the kli sheni, and what hits the sink is still not even really irui kli rishon. But let's say you do it without a colander. Let's say your sink has a good, it's very clean, and let's say you've got a good strainer in your sink. So you're pouring a pot of pasta directly into your sink, right? So that sink is now going to mamish be like chametz, right? That irui kli rishon, the pouring from the kli rishon is going to infuse chametz into the walls of the sink. And we know the rule, kibolo kaf polto, right? The way that it came in is the way that we have to extract it, right? So that's why the halacha is when it comes to sinks, we kasher with irui, kasher with pouring from a kli rishon. So now how that works is, like we said, by the other thing from there, anytime you're kashering, any kashering, with the exception of libun, like of self-cleaning, any type of kashering, you first have to wash the utensil completely. The reason for this, I didn't explain before, is simple. If you have a piece of a pot and there's a piece of chametz on it, and you kasher it with the piece of chametz there, so you're just re-cooking the chametz into the pot. That's not kashering, right? So step one is it has to be completely and totally clean. Then you have to wait 24 hours. The reason for that is after 24 hours, we know this idea, it's no longer a ben yomo. The pot becomes an eno ben yomo, which means the taste is pugum. We call that tam pugum. After 24 hours, assuming we're not talking about onions and garlic and stuff like that, but after 24 hours, the taste turns bad, it turns rotten. And then when we kasher it, we're pulling out that tam pugum, so there's no taste to go back into the pot. If I would kasher it within 24 hours, so then I would need 60 times in order to kasher it, right? Because let's just take a pot of chametz. I just made pasta in this pot, right? And I wash it out really well. And now I kasher it. So what am I doing? I'm boiling water in this pot. So I'm pulling out the taste from the pot. But if I don't have 60 times the taste, it's just going to cook it right back into the walls of the pot. If I have 60 times, so then as the taste comes out of the pot, it disappears halachically, and that would make it kosher. However, just mathematically, you almost never ever have 60 times the volume of the walls of the pot in the pot. It just doesn't work. You need a very, very, very flat, shallow pan. I don't want to talk about it mathematically, how to make it work. But basically, any pot, you're almost never going to have shishim in the pot, which is why you have to always wait 24 hours after the cleaning process. Here also, like with the plastic kumkum, sometimes you have a situation where a caterer comes to a job and they can't wait 24 hours, right? In other words, like, it's a not kosher kitchen and they only have the hotel for a Shabbos. They can't shut down the hotel from Thursday. Right? So this is major shilas to come up in kashrus. So then they'll do things like using bleach and stuff like that, right? Instead of waiting 24 hours for the tam to become pagum, they'll kasher it first with bleach to make it pagum and then kasher it again, right? But that again, that's only b'diavad, and that's like, a big question, right? But halacha wise, practically, and certainly when it comes to Pesach and you're trying to do things the right way, so that's what we do. So you have to plan your kashering in advance, which is why like I said, we had a timer last night. I knew by 8 p.m. last night I had to be finished all the cleaning and everything. Not whoever was washing and cleaning, I had to be finished with all the cleaning and everything, because in order to kasher, you have to wait 24 hours. Okay, so that's what happened yesterday. So yesterday, this room was abuzz with all these surfaces being cleaned. I just want to wipe this out because there's just like some schmutz that settled in here over the course of the day. Didn't they see like a towel or something? Yeah, just get hot by here for a second. We used to, there's a there on the floor. Just testing the.
You do?
Oh, it's not plugged in this whole time. That's why it's not charging. I know it's it works. It's probably not going to work because it's not plugged in. This is stuff on the wall. I just. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm going to post this also, but yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, let's like some water too. Okay, so these things now have been cleaned and dry and not used for 24 hours. The halacha is that once you clean it, so you can't use it for those 24 hours, because again, technically, if you're using it only for cold, it won't be a problem because it won't actually re-infuse it. But the halacha is you're not supposed to use it for anything hot or cold. And we, like I saw before, we put plastic over it to make sure that nobody comes here and uses it. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now, again, picture that all throughout the year, stuff gets poured into the sinks. That is chametz, right? And and gets splashed up here. These we're going to actually.
Wait, Rosencine, how well do you have to clean it if you put inserts in it, like sink inserts?
Oh, okay, very good. So let me. Okay, so let's explain piece by piece. If your sinks are not metal, so then you cannot kasher them, right? In other words, the like I said before, kashering only works on the materials that the Torah tells us that we can kasher. So if your sinks are made out of porcelain or something like that, so kashering is not an option. Then what you have to do is wash it as well as you can. And then let it sit 24 hours before Pesach, so that any taste that was in there becomes pogum already from before Pesach. And then you just use an insert over Pesach, but kashering doesn't do anything and doesn't pull out any of the taste. So if you're using a sink insert, then the only thing you have to be sure of is that it is absolutely clean, right? That it's the cleanliness that matters. If you're kashering, then it has to be clean and kashered, right? Then you have to do both those things. But if you're kashering, then you don't need an insert. And likewise, if you're using an insert, then you don't need to kasher, right? Okay.
What if the faucet is not one of the things that could be kasher? Does that matter?
What do you mean? Like it's made out of plastic? Well, so I'll explain in a second. But these, I'm just trying to like not get water. Okay, these we use different ones for Pesach, meaning like these actual pieces come right off, and we use Pesach ones, and these we put away for Pesach. And these pipes we wash very, very, very well, and I don't pull them out over Pesach at all. Okay, that's the story. I kasher them also, but I don't. It's very hard to clean this perfectly and all of that. So, like we clean it with bleach and all of that, but I don't pull these out at all for Pesach. Again, because we let it sit for 24 hours, it's not becoming something stick from the water traveling through it, right? But I don't want it to be out and getting wet and mixing with my stuff on Pesach. Okay, is that clear?
You're worried that it's gonna stick the pasta.
I'm worried that there's like taste of chametz in here that I'm not kashering out properly, and I'd rather just keep it in the whole time. Yeah, that's basically the idea. And these we're worried just like splatter and stuff like that, so we're just gonna pour hot water over them. Okay, good. So that the halacha is when it comes to kashering, and this is when it comes to kashering like this, or kashering in a pot, and you're going to put stuff into the pot, which we're not going to be doing here tonight. But anytime you're kashering, it's not enough for the water just to be boiling. It has to be like what they call a roiling boil, like really, really, really boiling, like stark boiling. So the way that I do that on a kumkum like this, which is not so safe, you have to be very careful when you do it. But it turns off automatically, once it boils. But if you keep the button pressed down, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to do that in a second, it's going to pop up, and I'm going to push it back down and keep it pressed down. So then it boils it even more and more. It has to be this one I like using, and that's why we save this every year for the kashering, because it has to be, as you can see, it's like a super hot boom boom even on its own. Okay, but before I do it, just please, like, as soon as I'm ready to give you like a good arc over here, I don't want to I'm going to go like this with it, okay? So please, like, not to hit anybody. You're supposed to start from like the outer edge and work your way down, you know what I mean, into it. The most important place is like where you pour stuff. So like this area is the most important. So we're going to start by kashering here. Hopefully we'll be able to do it with just one pot, and I'll be able to first get here and then get here, and then I'm going to fill the pot and reboil it again. This used to work, but then we got that big last year. So this I hope we actually planning on taking out before Pesach. But this, if you have one of these that actually works, like a water filter, so you just do exactly what we're doing here. You're going to do on that. Also, you wash it, let it sit 24 hours, and then pour boiling water on it. Together with everything else. And problem is that steam comes out from that little spot also, and you can really get hurt. And then what else was I going to just say? Right, and then we cover this all over afterwards. Like any of the non-metal parts, we cover with this PVC. Okay, ready? It's boiling, boiling.
You don't boil
And
them.
the kettle that you use to make the water.
Okay. Oh. Ow. Ow. Ooh, ooh, perfect. Okay.
Right.
I'm okay. What actually means? This needs to be rinsed off. Okay, 1 second. Okay, because I'm really carefully, very, very carefully. I take it back. I'll do it.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
It's supposed to be rinsed off with cool water right away. But okay, second.
That's why when you come to chicken going after.
Yeah, it's like really kind of like hold on, like at that point, but nothing to heal anymore, But
Real question. What if the water from the sink gets hot enough for you to?
yeah, if you can bring it here. What you say? I'm sorry.
What if the water from the sink is hot enough to be able to let it go? And there's comments in the sink, right? And you're washing the dishes with very, very hot water. Then the chametz is cooked inside the sink, like actually cooked inside, like, and not just poured inside the sink.
Right. Well, that's exactly what this is. It's the same thing.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But you don't have a fire under the sink, right? And I know it does that. No, I'm serious. A dishwasher is like that, right? A dishwasher has a heating element inside. It doesn't just use the hot. Thank you. It doesn't just use the hot water. It doesn't just use the hot water from the sink. It has its own element inside. So that's why a dishwasher is literally a kli rishon. It's like actually a big pot, halachically. You know what I'm saying?
The water in the dishwasher gets that hot.
Yeah, it gets, well, I mean, Yatzaledisbo is that hot, halakhically, that hot is not that hot, right? You know what I'm saying? Halakhically, Yatzaledisbo is already as hot as you need it to be for anything, for a bishul, for a trait, for a Shabbos, for, any of those things. The point is that for kashering, we're better off when we get it hotter and hotter, right? So, like, another example of something that's really good for kashering that also post like there's certain leniencies that if you use it as like a steam cooker, a steam sprayer, a pressure sprayer, not like a Ninja pressure cooker, but like a power washer, but like the hot kind. You know what I mean? Only one time somebody lent me one in Chicago. So much fun. Right? It's like this machine, like a big machine like this, and you fill it with water. And because it puts the water under tremendous pressure, it lets you heat it up way hotter than boiling. It gets like 250 degrees or something. So that's very, very good for kashering because that's for sure hotter than anything you've ever used in your kitchen. So a lot of times mashgiachim who go to hotels and event halls and things like that, they'll have those power washer steamers because they just use that on the whole surface and it's done. You know what I mean? That you have to wash it and wait 24 hours. But once you've done that, it's much, much easier than pouring and much less dangerous and faster and cooler and all of that. Okay. Yeah.
You know what the brick is like
What the brick is?
It's like a hot brick or something.
Yeah. Okay, we're talking about that. Right? We're talking about that. So there's two things. There's two things that you need a hot rock for potentially in. So okay, this urn is a Pesach urn, right?
Oh.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. No, the question of what in general, what urn do you use to do this, right? We didn't address this. I'm saying what urn or a kumkum. I'm saying what utensil do you use to do the kashering? Obviously, you shouldn't be using a chametz, please, right? Because I just made pasta in it an hour ago and I'm using it kosher, right? That's not going to work. But also, isn't using the Pesach kli a problem for the kli because now it's maybe becoming chametz stick because I'm pouring it and it's getting all the steam and all of that stuff, right? So the post can say as follows. Obviously, the best thing to do would be a totally neutral pot, one you don't use for chametz or for Pesach, but most people don't have just an extra kumkum around. Although I've done that a few years, like basically every year I end up buying the school a new kumkum for Pesach. So then that's for a number of years that would have been like I used that for kashering and then would bring it to the school. So it was like totally fresh, a totally fresh thing. But that's you don't have to peel up. But then you should use a Pesach one. And assuming you're doing the kashering like we're doing, which is everything has been 24 hours and washed and all and like that. So then there's really no chametz, steam, or anything like that coming in contact with the kumkum, and you don't really have to kasher it. But there are people that do, but I don't. Kashering kumkum anyway. Okay, so that's as far as what to use. Now, where does a hot rock come in? So there's two places that a hot rock is used in kashering. Okay, number one is on countertops. Now, we're not doing the countertops here because these cannot be kashered. Right, plastic or whatever. This can't be kosher. So there's no. So what we do is just to wash it very, very, very well, and also let it sit 24 hours. We also use in all of the nooks and crannies and corners some sort of caustic cleaning, bleach, whatever. So that way, even if there's any chametz there, it becomes inedible. Right? It becomes public. It becomes gross because of the bleach and stuff like that. Right. So we clean everything, and then we use this PVC, like thick plastic, and make sure that it doesn't get spilled. If it spills, we clean up underneath. But then this is fine. Like no chametz gets through this. No, right? And that you're allowed to use. If you have a stainless steel or certain types of shayish, certain types that can be kashered, so then you would do everything that we did until now. You would use you clean it. You would wait 24 hours. But then the kashering, in addition to just the healing, what some people do. Again, this is a umrah. Some people do this, not everybody does it. It's for sure kosher if you don't do it. But what they say is as follows: that since when I just need to wash off something in the back, there's like a blob of some kind of since when you use your counters, it sometimes becomes not just from the pot spilling, right? But maybe you had like a spill over here of meat or chametz, and I took a hot pot straight from the stove and I put it down, boom, right over here. So that's like a kli rishon cooking into my counter. So for that reason, in order to make sure that in case we did that, that any of that taste is also taken out again, because this idea of propolo half pulled out, right? The way it gets in is the way that it has to come out. So in order to make sure, they would take what's called an eved maluban. They would take like a red hot rock that they kept red hot on the fire, and as they go around with the pouring, as if it's not dangerous enough, you have another person with some tool or something moving the rock back and forth, right? And that way it's like a rishon cooking out the taste as you go. Right? But again, we don't. Again, some people do that if they copy their counters. But I did do it. I'll tell you what I did. People do it with an iron, right? While they're pouring hot water, they go along it with an iron, and that iron is like the rishon. But again, it has to be like the right temperature and all of that.
So the brick is the hammer? Not needed?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is the brick or the hot stone?
I actually just thought you were making a joke and said so Berkeley's.
I also heard
The brick is well
the brick and the burgers are hot hammer. I don't know. It's you said the brick is a hammer and it's not a burger. The brick is a burger.
Good job, Chava. Good job.
if that's something that maybe happens in your kitchen, you know what I mean? Like let's say it's the type of kitchen that's pots like that are put down and it's not just like a humra, but that's something that you have likely done and that you do. So then, I would say you should do it.
So do you put yats on the stove top?
What'd you say?
Do you put yats on the
No. It has to be while you're doing the irui. In addition to the irui, you're using an even muban to push down on that whole area.
When is it necessary?
If you are convinced, well, I don't know why this is boiling like this so much. It's gonna be weird. Okay, let's make sure this. Okay, I did the top already. Let's see if we do the inside. Okay.
Is that what good enough, or did it have to be like raging like it was?
No, that was. I'm saying it didn't turn off. It was just boiling. It wasn't filled as high. That's why it wasn't.
Oh, so that's like still over.
Well, if you fill it, if you don't fill it, so then it won't. Okay, we'll say let's cool this off. Okay, that's one place where you need to have an on. The other place, and this is a real battlefield, but for sure it is as follows. That's like when we get to an urn. Okay, so now let's say you have an urn that is not, there's no plastic. Okay, so there's no issue with plastic. Your urn is all metal. Or let's just say any pot, a regular pot that is your. One second, Leah or somebody.
Yeah.
Can I have a marker so I can mark off the Sari and the sink, please? You know what I mean? A permanent one, please. I just want to be able to mark which one is weak in the middle. So when you have a pot that you're capturing, like just like a regular wrap on here for show. Okay. So you're capturing a pot like this, okay? So this is chametz or treif, anything. So again, you wash it, and when we wash it again, you have to be really careful. Things like this that have like nooks and crannies and details, you have to mamish go in there with a toothpick and everything, because if you don't wash it properly, it doesn't become kosher. It doesn't become kosher from chametz. The mamish has to be totally clean. Okay, so you're going to fill it up and put it on the fire, and it's going to boil. The problem is that that'll kosher the whole pot, but not the rim. Right? Because the rim, sometimes you have a pot of chametz and it bubbles and boils over. So what you have to do is as follows. And if you just put something in to overflow it, so that's fine, but that cools it off when you put it in, right? So you're achieving the overflow, but you're not achieving the overflow with a roiling boil. So what you have to do is take a stone or a brick or something, and you put it on the fire next to it, like you're boiling this pot on this fire, and you put the stone on the flame next to it, and with a tool or pliers or something safe, you have to very, very carefully drop the rock into the pot so that that super hot rock, it like goes, it makes like a real explosion because it makes like a lot of steam, and it forces the pot to boil itself over, not just overflow, but it like really boils over, and quickly turn off the flame with a glove so you don't burn yourself because the water is going to be boiling. Really, really be careful. Don't ever do this unless you really know what you're doing, because you really you could get hurt. But those are the two places where you have the halacha of heating up a stone for kashering. One is to move along with kashering a countertop, which nowadays people will use an iron safely if they don't have to, instead of a stone. And the other place where you do need a stone or a hammer, I'm saying you use, like, I know somebody who has like a really big hammer, like a big hammerhead, so he would just in that hammerhead in the fire and just drop the hammer in, and that would be, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a rock. It just has to be something that is big enough that it's going to force it to overflow, and something that's made of a material that can get hot enough. Right, done perfectly.
Why can't you just boil the pot in another pot?
Sorry?
Why can't you just put the pot in another pot?
Oh, you can, yeah. There's only for pots that you can't fit into another pot, for sure. Yeah, anything you put into another pot.
So why can't you just take the stone and put the stone on there?
But how is that taking out the taste? You need the liquid to pull out the taste. The stone is just like there. See, the thing with here also, you need the liquid to pull out the taste.
But then why does the stone help?
Because it makes it hotter. It makes the place where the liquid is hotter so that the liquid pulls out the taste.
If someone has like let's say granite or marble on top, they have to do this. Say if at home, let's say I have granite, right?
Yeah.
And like when we take sometimes our pots and we put it on our countertop, then we have to take the whole brick.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. No, also nice people. I don't think that's a way that
So likely that the counter wasn't perfectly clean though.
Um,
You're cooking and a bunch of stuff and you put the pot down, like everyone puts pots down on granite countertop.
yeah, you don't put it down on a thing, on a trivet.
On a granite countertop, that's the one thing you're able to on this sheet. We have these, so you put it down because this will get ruined, but granite won't get ruined. So everyone puts pots down and it's so likely.
Okay, let's go. I'll try to ask advice. I'll offer advice. Like if you really need to do that. I don't know. It's a good question. Okay, so that's the sinks. That's the thing. Countertops we addressed. Stove inside the stove. This we just cover over. This is not anything. And I think that's it. Any other questions? And it's not like whatever, just like knives and forks and spoons and all those types of things. You just make a boiling pot of water and and put them in or bring them to your. If you go to the Kashering people, you have to really make sure that they know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's just from kids and the water is not really boiling. Like, you can't just assume like, oh, I gave it to its exposure. You have to look and see that it's kosher. Okay. Questions?
Quick question.
Yeah.
If we're lining our like wooden table, do we need to let it sit for 24 hours after we clean it?
If you want to, if no, lining something, you don't need to let it sit. Lining something, you're just, not going to contact it over Pesach, so that you don't need to,
So you have to kosher it?
Okay.
No. If you're covering it, you don't need to kosher it.
Also, for like lining shelves and stuff, do I need to do the sides of them? They're not usually. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
No. Lining itself, I mean, like it's not a huge line.
Anything else?
What's the difference between- So I remember the rabbi mentioned about leaving the counters for 24 hours before covering them with PVC. What is the difference between that and lining a shelf? Like, why don't you have to?
No, you don't have to have it be 24 hours before you put the PVC. It's really 24 hours before Pesach. I mean, the point is that the counters just have to be covered before Pesach. So I did say that, but I didn't mean it. I said it, you know what I mean? I said it wrong.
Okay, thank you so much.
Somebody just asked about I just want to answer. Somebody asked about microwave. So in general, kashering a microwave, is a controversial topic. Some folks can hold that you can't at all. That's the way that I paskin for many years. And then years ago, I spoke about it with Requise and Requise is Megal. And so but only during the year, not for Pesach. So for during the year to kasher a microwave, what you need to do is to clean it out very well, which is hard, right? It's not so easy to do that. Like, some microwaves are very hard to do that, but you have to make sure that you do that. So if you can clean out a microwave very, very well, so then just like everything else, you clean it and then wait 24 hours. After 24 hours, take a mug of water and put it in there until it really, really, really boils. I can't say a number of minutes because it depends on the microwave and how powerful it is, but it has to be that like when you open it up, steam like flows out. It has to be, because that's the whole point. That the steam is filling the microwave and pulling the taste out of the walls. So just a little bit of steam is not going to be enough. It has to be, the microwave is full of steam. So that's what they say. For Pesach, we don't rely on this, so it's not reliable. For Pesach, and certainly for Ashkenazim, almost every microwave has a glass plate on the bottom, and that can't be kosher, anyway. We don't. People ask about microwaves. I said, really, if your mamish can't afford one, then it's a huge difference for you, and so then you can ask it, on case by case basis. But of all the things that I recommend not to kosher for Pesach, I'm not a microwave kosher. Okay, sorry, Esther Lily.
One of my roommates has a question. Is melatonin considered a vitamin or a medication? Like, do you need does it have to be kosher to Pesach, or can you still take it? It's like a pill, but
I think it's okay. I think you're treated like a medicine.
okay.
I think so.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
What could be kosher, metal and what else?
Metal. Saying all different types of metal, yeah. Well, and granite, I'm saying like certain, right, also certain types
How
of
do you do
stone.
that?
Just clean them, just make sure they're clean.
It's for sure cold.
Right.
Cold.
Right. I mean, the truth is sometimes people put hot pots in and just make sure it's clean. I'm not saying, make sure it's clean.
No, because that's in the.
Yeah, that's just. Okay, super. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you to the camera person.
I'll show you once I precious pinch